I have had those in the past ask me the question of, how is it you say you can hear from God? How can I learn to hear from God? How would I know when I've heard from God? Well, I got many of you out there that get into this. Here's a piece I found hidden in my notes. I put it out some time ago, maybe a year or so ago. Never got around putting it into a video. Now it came upon this tonight and I said, why didn't I put that out? I hope you can follow this. I have to go in a lot of the details, but when you get done, if you'll follow this all the way through to the end, the Lord will explain it. It's powerful. So here's the title of this piece. The first person, God, speaks. So we know about English, the first person, second person, third person. The first person, God, speaks to the second person, you or I, humanity. And when he speaks to it, he gives us life. Now, in the book of James, it's called the Engrafted word. Let me read that for you. James chapter 1, verse 21. Wherefore, now this is out of the expanded Greek translation. It's usually a little different than the King James. James chapter 1, verse 21. Wherefore lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word. This is engrafted to the human spirit, which is able to save your soul. This is the carnal human mind. The soul, the carnal mind of emotions and feelings. And by an act of the free will of the soul, a willingness, not will, power. Willing, just willing, not willpower. The power is what you wait for. Superfluity, brought out in that Greek text. Superfluity, whatever exceeds a limit. We'll exceed our limits many times in, trying to figure out things. Whatever exceeds a limit, measure, bound, accustomed degree. Something added to pleasure, but not absolutely necessary. What do I mean by that? Hear this statement given to me. It is only after we have exhausted all human efforts. Hear that. It's only after we have exhausted all human efforts, which we all do, and wait for our Father's engrafted word to our spirits for what we desire, that what we desire from our Father comes. We all do that. Should have came to God first. Seek first the kingdom of God. All these things would be added unto us, but we don't do that. We go through all this superfluity, exhausting to the extreme, human efforts, and end up frustrated. Whom the Lord loves, he will frustrate you. But out of his love for you, he sees you struggling, trying to find an answer to a problem. And you're not waiting. You're trying everywhere. You're asking 10,000 people. You get 10,000 different opinions. When this clicks, what I just said, you hear from your Father. And what you hear is spirit and is life. Let me read it one more time. It is only after we have exhausted all human efforts and wait for our Father's engrafted word to our spirits for what we desire, that what we desire from our Father comes. When this clicks, you wait. You'll hear from your Father. And what you hear is spirit and is life. So here's some Greek taking that word. Filthiness. I'm not going to get into that. Most of us aren't Greek scholars, so I'll just flash it up here on the screen for you. For anybody who's a Greek scholar, he can get into it. This word filthy, pollution, defilement. We defile ourselves, trying to figure things out independent from God. You keep that up, He'll leave you what's called a reprobate mind, using the mind for that which God never intended you to be used for. Our mind was to wait to the mind of our spirits for the Father to address the situation. So that was that Greek word. Now you hear this word filthiness. Well, filthy comes from the book of Isaiah, the familiar text. Isaiah 64, verse 6. But we are all as unclean thing, and all our righteousness, human efforts, are as filthy rags. And we all do fade as a leaf, in our iniquities, like the wind, has taken us away. I got to get off the off-beaten trail there. God's trying to lead you in directions, and you sit there trying to rack your brain, trying to figure things out independent from God. It's called sinning. So what does that mean by the opening title? Hear this. What is the first person? The second person. The third person in the English language. So here's some notes. Easy learning grammar. When we want to identify the speaker or the person spoken about in grammar, we use first person to mean the speaker, second person to mean the person who is spoken to, and third person to mean the person who is spoken about. For example, we talk about first person plural or third person singular. Here's some examples that I'll flash up on the screen. First person. The singular is I. The plural that is we. The second person is you, and the plural is you. The third person, he, she, or it, and the plural that is they. Nouns, the man, and the plural that is the men, or a girl, and the plural that is two girls. That's just some brief English. This all has bearing. You'll see what I mean. How would you reveal how God speaks to you? Would He be considered the first person? And you, the second person in grammar? We know that's true, it is. If this is true, then those that you share what God, the first person, shared to you, the second person, they would be the third person, they. Those that you shared what you got from God. So God would be the speaker, and you would be the person to whom He spoke to. Those hearing you speak to them might think that you are the first person, when in truth you would be the second person, a vessel. That's what it should be. In light of proper grammar and the proper procedure, learning to hear God's voice, it can't be you, your opinions and your ideas, walking in the power of your flesh, with your keen brain, thinking you can figure things out independent from God. We're not sufficient to do that. Now I think I'll throw that text up on I use that quite a bit from Paul. I'll read that text. It would be God, the first person, speaking through you to them, or he, she, or they. Example. I hear our Father speak to me. This is what I claim. I'm saying you can get the same thing. I hear our Father speak to me. Then I share what He shared to me. Yet many times you will hear me express it as if I originated what I share to you, or those around me, the they, or them, when in truth I was not the originator of what I shared. There's time, if it's my opinion and I originate something, I'll say it's my ideas. I haven't heard from the Lord about the matter. I'll give you my opinion. Paul would occasionally do that, but most of the time he would wait till his spirit. And when he wrote his letters, it was the Father speaking through him. I got examples of that series. Learn to hear God's voice, the living word. Example. Here's an example. The woman with the blood issue in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, verses 25 to 34. I'll read that in a minute. This woman with the blood issue heard the Father say to her, here's what she heard. He, the first person, speaking to the second person, this woman. If you but touch the hem of Jesus' garment, you'll be healed. That's what she heard. She at that time, now understand, they were unaware of this mystery of the mind of Christ being in them. She at that time, unaware of how God was speaking to her, even her spirit, her human spirit, with the mind of Christ. She at that time, unaware of how God was speaking to her, even her spirit, would think these words were her own words, and thus would say what she had heard, expressing it, as she does in the text, expressing it in the first person in this way. If I but touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed. Yet in truth, the words she spoke were not her words, but the words of her God, her Father, unaware. These words are what heals her. You'll see that in that text of that, Mark chapter 5. So when Jesus said to those doing the same thing, be it unto you according to your faith. He said that. He says it to this woman, to others. This is what he knew. And the question is, what did he know? That the Father was speaking through them, unaware at that time, and their faith, the substance of hope for, the evidence of things not seen, and this faith was the substance of that which they had hoped for, and their healing was the evidence of their faith, or the powerful words of God the Father, the mystery once hidden now being revealed. With it still being a mystery until later the Apostle Paul reveals the mystery of Christ, the mind of Christ in our spirits, speaking to us those words from our Father, empowering these words to his Holy Spirit. Same mind. Jesus didn't have to ask the Father concerning them. Now here's that text. I'm going to read it for you. Mark 5:25. And a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was doing nothing, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse. When she heard of Jesus, came in the press behind, she joined the crowd, and touched his garment. For she said, remember, the Father said this to her, she expressed it in the first person, unaware of who the first person is, the Father. She's the second person. She says, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway, here it is, straightway, the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Jesus immediately, knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press, in the crowd, and said, "Who touched my clothes?" you know? And the disciples said, "You see in this multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me?" Everybody was touching him. God was saying nothing to them. That was their faith. They didn't have that. As this woman had the Father speak to her. That's why virtue came out of the Son to her. God speaks to the Son, to the power of the Holy Spirit, to the mind of Christ in your spirit. Got it? And he looked around, about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague." See how it works? Now there's this as well. Jesus' garment wasn't magical. You see people that come up with magical handkerchiefs, magical garments, right? Jesus' garment wasn't magical. It was only a tool to which the power found in Jesus' spirit flowed. It was the same as the spit and dirt that Jesus used to heal the blind man's eyes. And like the rock that Moses struck once, that water flow out of it. The spit and dirt, the rock, and Jesus' garments were not magical. It was the words that Jesus and Moses spoke that manifested power. She heard the living word from the Father, and through the Son and through the Holy Spirit gained her healing. Powerful. So now, here again, where I shared above, it is only after we have exhausted all human efforts. She did. She wasted a lot of money. Doctors. It was only after we have exhausted all human efforts and wait for our Father's engrafted word to our spirits for what we desire, that what we desire from our Father comes. When this clicks, you hear from your Father, and what you hear is spirit and is life. God bless.